Lechi lach to a land that I will show you. Lech lecha to a place you do not know. Lechi lach.
Welcome to the 100th episode of Volunteers for Israel, VFI's episodes, otherwise known as Julia's Miracles. Julia is on her 20th wedding anniversary honeymoon at some remote island off the Indian Ocean. And I don't know that she'll be joining us today, maybe not, but we're going to proceed in any case. And it is our 100th episode, and you can find on the internet, if you wish to go back and see some of the prior episodes, you can find them at a particular website in an index, and that is called tinyurl.com/VFIeducates2.
And I put that in the chat, and I said emphasis on 2.
Yes.
We had to switch it.
And I'm going to explain at the end of our presentation today how to use some special software that'll help you optimize and save as much money as you can on your air flights. It's a product called itasoftware.com or matrix.itasoftware.com. And we'll go over it after the presentations are done if you're interested in learning how to use that special software. At this point, I'd like to ask Ilana to introduce our guest. We're delighted to have this evening.
I'm Julia for today. Our guest speaker today is Hannah Rosenberg. Hannah, if I get any of this wrong, I'm sorry. Hannah was born and raised in Florida, moved to Jerusalem in 2011 and became a lone soldier and continues to serve in a special combat intelligence unit for reserve duty. She became a licensed tour guide in 2020 and was called to reserve duty 1 week prior to the most recent attacks from Gaza. She was recently injured during the one recent mission and is recovering.
Wonderful. So, yeah, basically I want to just go a little bit more into that with my background, just so everything makes a little bit more sense, because it's an interesting story in the beginning. So yes, my name's Hannah Rosenberg. I'm born and raised in Jupiter, Florida, a little small town by West Palm Beach. I was raised with a mixed family. My mom's Christian, my dad's Jewish, and I was raised in a very Jewish home. My mom taught at my Jewish Sunday school, and I was very close with both sides of the family. I remember playing stickball with my grandma and grandpa until they passed away. And when my grandma passed away from my dad's side, she left me with one thing, and that was her Star of David necklace. A beautiful gold Star of David. I only pull it out a couple times a year to wear. And it put on the inspiration for me to find out more about my Judaism and eventually brought me to Israel. So at the age of 16, my parents gave me the option of you can go to band camp again, or you can go to Israel. So I chose to come to Israel, and I came on my first trip ever with an organization called Gesher Chai through the JCC organization, and came here for 1 month, 4 weeks.
Then we can't be together. Isn't that the prerequisite to dating?
Honestly, that.
And yeah. All good?
Yep.
Okay. So I came to Israel, spent 4 weeks here, 1 week with a host family, which was my first ever experience with a religious Jewish family, ultra-Orthodox, up in Hatzor, which first thing I was shocked of is they told me, no, you can't play your guitar on Shabbat. And I'm just like, okay, this is different. But then the daughter brought me around for a walk around the town, just showing me some things. And at one point, we needed some water and some food. So what do? We go knock on a random door. I'm American, you don't do that type of thing. So we knock on a random door. I'm like, do you know this person? No, of course not. Okay. They invite us in, they feed us, they let us use their facilities, and it was incredible. The first part that ever made me fall in love with Israel. Go back home to the States, and felt like I left something behind. Part of my soul was missing. I finished high school, was thinking of going to college, but didn't know what I wanted to do in life. So worked in Orlando for a year, saved up some money, and still didn't know what. You know what, let me go back to Israel. Let me do a gap year program. Did Young Judea year course, and as soon as I got off the plane, I knew this is where I belonged. So my parents didn't know it, but as soon as I got back to Israel, I'm like, okay, let me figure out where I want to live in the city. Do I want to live in a city? Do I want to live up north, down south? Let me check it all out. I lived in many different places, from Bat Yam for 3 months, teaching in an elementary school kids sports and English, and myself learning Hebrew. Then I moved to Arad and became an on-site guide at Masada. Desert life was not for me, way too hot. I came from Florida, I need more water. And then I lived in Jerusalem for 3 months, which I never thought myself of wanting to live in a religious city. But then I realized Jerusalem is not just a religious city. It is very mixed and very different, and it's a little bit of everything, and it is really the heart and soul of the country. So that's it. I took my plane ride back home, leaving all my suitcases here, got home, and my parents were like, "Where's your bags?" I'm like, "Well, by the way, I'm moving to Israel." Completely shocked, as anyone would expect their parents would be. So I spent a couple months with them, do all my Aliyah paperwork, and eventually move back here to Israel and make my home and settle down in Jerusalem. And that is just the beginning of the adventure. It goes on from me getting my first job, working as a waitress in an American sports bar called Mike's Place. I'm sure if you've been here, you're familiar with it. And making my way trying to get into the IDF. My first interview I had with the IDF, they said, "No, you can't go in, you're too old." At the time, I was 20 years old. 20 was the first time in my life I was told I was too old for something besides a bounce house. So I'm like, okay, this is not okay. I want to get in. There's no way I will properly become Israeli unless I serve and do my duty. So a few months go by, same thing happens over and over again, and I got fed up. I heard the story of Michael Levine, how he broke in through a window and drafted into the army that way. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do the same thing, but my way. Every Israeli soldier loves Coca-Cola, and most of them smoke cigarettes. So what do? I don't smoke personally. I buy a pack of cigarettes. I buy a big bottle of Coca-Cola. I give it to the guard in the front of the drafting office. He lets me in. I find the highest officer, sit at his desk with my feet on his table, and refuse to leave until he drafts me. And I definitely got my way that day. He's like, okay, I like your chutzpah. We'll let you in. So I wind up drafting in 2012, December, to Mikveh Alon. Mikveh Alon is a program for 3 months. You do basic training and 2 months of Hebrew courses. I did not even know the Aleph Bet fully when I moved in, without singing along to the Debbie Friedman song. So that is the beginning of my army service. Spent 3 months doing that and tried out for a combat unit. I really wanted to do combat. My Hebrew was still very low. I just felt like that was the most I could do because I was very physically fit. I was a strong person, and I thought that was the best way I could give back to the country. I got into a unit, not even knowing really what it was. It was called Modin Kravi or Isuf Kravi, which is a combat intelligence unit we specialize in reconnaissance. Mm-hmm. So I drafted into this unit. I am one of 3 people total that speak English in the unit. So I feel very much like a loner most of the time. But I'm there to do my job. I'm there to give back and do the best thing I can. They put me as a specialty as a navigator. We all learn everything, everyone's jobs and everything. And it was a very life-changing experience in a way of just going from zero Hebrew to being able to speak the Hebrew, and the way my relationships changed with the locals in the unit. During my regular service, we had the big operation in 2014 known as Operation Protective Edge, which turned my life upside down in a way. We did a lot of missions, a lot of things that we are not allowed to actually talk about or anything, so I can't go into details with it. But the hardest thing that really hurt me was I lost my three really close friends in a row, all within a couple of weeks of each other, which kind of made me realize that I wasn't alone. When I missed one of my friends' funerals, and then when I made it to another friend's funeral, there were more than 10,000 people at it. And people who had never known each other Loved it. And it was as sad as it was also very inspirational. I also got injured during that operation. I only would find that out much later on, a couple years later. Wound up getting 3 pars fractures, which ended up in me having to have spinal surgery. So the end of my Army service was a lot more or less complicated, combat related, because of my family situation. Because my mom is Christian and my dad is Jewish, I'm technically not considered a full Jew here, and I wanted to fix that. So I did a conversion program when I was in the Army, which took a few months, but I was able to do it with no problem. The rabbi I had was incredible. Did the full Orthodox conversion. And so now I'm officially fully Jewish with everything. And that's my basic Army service for that. When my Army service was actually finished, I then moved on to try to figure out what I wanted to do in life, which I still had no idea. I became a bartender, worked everywhere from managing the Ramada Hotel to working at the Waldorf Astoria. And one day I have a tour guide / archaeologist sit on my bar. His name's Joe Zeiss. I actually saw him today. And he kept asking me, well, what do you want to do in life? I'm like, I have no idea. And a tourist sits on the bar next to him and starts asking me questions. Hey, what's a cool place to see? Where's something to go? And I'm able to answer all the questions. So Joe looks at me and he's like, have you thought of becoming a tour guide? I'm like, hey, that sounds like the right job. So I start my adventures of figuring out how to do that, become a tour guide, and still be able to continue with everything else that I do. So I go for my tour guide interview. They accept me into the program. I'm about to start the program, and I get a call for reserve duty again. It happens a lot. I normally get called in at least 4 times a year. I go to reserve duty. I get out back into Jerusalem about an hour before my class starts. So I show up to my first day in class, still wearing my uniform, smelling like the field, which is a great first impression for everybody. We're a very mixed class. We got about 6 or 7 Muslim students, a few Christian students, and a bunch of Jewish students, ranging from the oldest was in his 80s to the youngest being 19 years old. So definitely a very mixed crowd of people. Wonderful to be around. It was actually one of my first real experiences becoming friends with what some people consider the Palestinians. For me, they were just my friends, the same age as me, same aspirations, inspirations, and lovely people to finally get to meet and hang out with. Still in touch with all of them to this day. But in the beginning of the course, they were scared of me because I showed up in a uniform. In the end, it was fantastic. So I spent the next 2.5 years doing the tour guide course, working on the exam, passing the exam, getting called into the reserve duty all the time for this, that, or the other. And now we're pretty much closer to up to date. I got licensed in 2020, about a month before Corona hit and our first lockdown started. And then we went into Corona mode, lockdowns, trying to find jobs to pass the time. You guys heard about all the situations we've had here with the different protests and all the little things. And it basically brings us up to this past summer. This past summer, we felt things were really starting to heat up a lot. Things were getting tense, especially, I go to the Old City almost every day, and you can feel it in the air of how tense things were getting. I got a call about 2 weeks before Jerusalem Day from my commander putting me on red alert. It was the second week of Ramadan, first week of Ramadan, something like that. And my commander told me, okay, you're on red alert. What that means is I have to have my go bag with me at all times and to be able to quickly get to whatever meetup point we're told to go to base and do what we need to do. So, okay, we're on red alert. Let's hope nothing happens. 2-3 days go by. I get the call. Nope, you're needed. You need to go to base right away. My commander picks me up at my house. We go to base, no idea what's going to happen. And 6 days into my reserve duty, I get injured. I ended up having a couple broken ribs, dislocating my shoulder, and a few other injuries. But don't worry, I'm fine. I'm like 90% recovered now. And for me, it was a hard thing because I had to now leave my team, go back to Jerusalem, and they're still there doing what they need to do. So I have a nice, easy weekend for a couple days, just trying to recover. I decided to have my first day out. It happens to be Jerusalem Day. Jerusalem Day, I'm going to one of my friends' house, going with a friend to go get a beer at the local pub. Sitting there outside, the owner of the pub comes up to me asking me about my injuries, telling him the same story I just told you. And he's like, so do you think we're going to have a war? And this is a little dark humor, but I'm like, no, there's not going to be a war unless they fire a missile at Jerusalem. And I wish I knocked on wood because 5 minutes later, the siren goes off. Now to paint the scene a little bit more, it's Jerusalem Day. Families and kids are all out on the streets having a blast. There's a beautiful jazz band playing right in front of us on the courtyard right outside the pub I'm sitting at, a bunch of restaurants and everything nearby. And the siren goes off and everyone looks at each other and they're like, wait, okay, we have a siren for Memorial Day. We have a siren for Holocaust Memorial Day. Do we have a siren for Jerusalem Day? Is that new? Did no one tell us? And then everyone realizes, no, this is an actual siren. And luckily in Jerusalem, we have 3 minutes to get to a bomb shelter. So I get up, all the other workers come out and they're telling everyone, just come inside downstairs. It's a bomb shelter, you'll be safe. Most of the people run inside, a lot of people still stay outside and just look up to the skies recording, thinking everyone will just be safe, which thank goodness everyone was. And you could hear the explosions and you could feel the windows shaking from when the missiles went off, which went off about 10 kilometers away from where I was at the time. And then as soon as that was over, within the next half an hour, the streets emptied completely. It would be like maybe you would see 20 people walking around at any given time. Very strange and eerie circumstance to see. During this whole Corona time, it's been very quiet and calm on the streets, but this was just, you could hear the crickets chirping for the most part in a place which you just had a live jazz band playing in. And it's a feeling that if you never experienced it before, you can't really quite explain. But then you get these little hordes of teenagers and early kids in their 20s walking by, waving Israeli flags, singing and dancing, and basically saying in Hebrew, we are not afraid, we will still continue to celebrate, in different chants over and over and over again. And just trying to pick up the vibe of the people and the citizens living here, which was a beautiful, beautiful sight to see. And this is one thing that continues even now to this day. We still have our wonderful mayor here in Jerusalem, which has hired musicians to play in all the major corners and intersections in the city center, just to liven up the spirits, which is beautiful. Also, one of the big things, which when the missiles started happening here, you guys have all heard of our Iron Dome system, which is incredible. The Iron Dome is, I think it was about 90% intercepted from the missiles, which, what type of country has to develop an equipment like that just to protect themselves and not fire back? It's incredible. You guys know all about that, how humane the army is here. And from seeing it from a firsthand perspective and having friends that actually work in the Iron Dome system, it's incredible. The math and the science that go behind it, even the kids that are working, I say kids, they're adults. They're 18, 19, 20, 25 years old for some of them, but they have to have a reaction time of less than 3 seconds from when a missile is launched for them to hit the button to react to it. Is this missile going to hit civilians, or is this missile going to land in the ocean? And it's not quite sure what else to say for that part. The other things that happened after that, the times are tense. You have the attempted stabbings that were happening over here. I had just finished a tour with a couple friends in the old city, and I'm really close to Damascus Gate. So I decided, okay, let me make a little goodie basket and bring it over to some of my friends. They work as a border patrol in the Sheikh Jarrah area. So I go over, I drop off a gift basket with them with some sodas and barekas and just basic little food snacks to make them all happy. Chat with them for a few minutes, and then I start walking away. About 200 meters away, just a couple minutes afterwards, I hear screeching of the tires and a giant bang. This was the car ramming that happened, where 7 soldiers got run into, a couple of them being the ones I had just given food to. So instantly I turn around, run back over, and do what I can to participate to help them, because I have the basic medical training, and I've at least summoned another pair of hands just to help put pressure on any wounds. Luckily, they were all not horribly injured, and everyone's okay, or recovering still. And it was just one event after another for the next couple of weeks. Not really sure what to expect when you wake up in the day. People kept telling me, especially my mom and dad, Hannah, avoid the old city, don't go to the old city, stay home. And I always I would look at them in the eye on the video chat and tell them, no, this is my city, I'm gonna keep going out. I'd rather be near an incident when it happens just so I can help out instead of running away and put my foot down. This is our homeland. Let's be part of it. I don't want to live in a place of fear. And that's what I do to this day still, because the city, most people here just want to live in peace. I have friends of all different backgrounds. I go to every area you can in Israel. I've even been to Ramallah a couple times. Go to Bethlehem all the time. I have good friends that live there that I go over to their house and have dinner with. And most people just want to live in peace. It's the only 1%, 2% of people that actually cause the issues with everything. To end this basic thing before we open it up for any questions, wanted to tell a story that really represents Jerusalem for me. This past Friday, I was walking over to Machne Yehuda, which is the shuk, the open marketplace here in Jerusalem. It's about a 10-minute walk from my house, right along the light rail. I'm halfway there, and this old religious man with a giant trolley full of goods drops a full box of cherry tomatoes. I'm sure you guys are familiar with cherry tomatoes. They're about the size of mini golf balls, and they go everywhere. Instantly, every single person stops and helps pick them up. From the young Muslim kids that are walking by to the religious to everyone in between. And everyone stops and helps while people go to stores and get plastic bags to fill it all in. For me, that is Jerusalem, because I've had that same experience at a Publix in Florida where I dropped a bag of something random and people just looked away and walked away. Jerusalem's a place that we are here for each other. We help each other out with everything. And that's the biggest thing to represent here. Just to love each other for who we are. And yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. I know a lot of people have messaged me in the chat asking where they can find this recorded because they want to share it with family members and friends. So if anyone wants, it will be up on our YouTube in a few days. And you can also find it at that tinyurl.com/VFIeducates2, the number 2. There are no questions in the chat, but if you'd like to unmute yourself, you're welcome to ask Hannah any questions you might have. There was a question, but you answered it without knowing.
Hannah, that's a great experience for a Floridian by birth. Very unexpected, very rewarding. Now, are you in the military on an extension beyond your basic service requirement?
Yeah, I was a fully volunteer soldier. I didn't have to serve at all. I was over the age at the time. So my whole service was voluntary. My reserve duty was also voluntary.
So how long can you stay in the reserve?
I've actually been in the process of getting out since my spinal surgery. I can't really do what my full duty is.
Can you give us a flavor of some of the generalized, some of the combat missions that you referred to?
Very vaguely, one of the things that we do, one of the things that my unit is specialized in is for reconnaissance. We also have equipment that we're able to take a laser and lace a specific building so the Air Force can then come in and do what needs to be done. We're also there on the ground to be able to see things with our own eyes instead of just through a radar. And we do a variety of other things. We've done arrests in areas that we're normally not supposed to be in, and many other things that I just can't get into detail with.
Thank you. What do your parents feel now?
They tell me this all the time. They just feel very proud. Yeah, a lot of things that I've done I can't even share with them, even though I really want to, because I'm very close to my family. I'm sure all they want me to do is come back to America and live over there, but I think they know that I'm happy here and they're happy for me that I'm here.
So right now your plan is to stay in Israel?
Yeah.
Definitely. We have a lot of thank yous coming in on the side.
I have a question.
Sure.
Hi, Ben. Thanks for speaking. If a young person wanted to follow your path and go maybe take a gap year or do some high school in Israel, what advice would you give them from America, a young person from the United States? I mean, what are some of the adjustments or the preparations, or what should they expect? You know, some of the frustrations and how to overcome them.
Number one, I would say just jump in and go do it, because it was a year that changed my life. You only live once, so you might as well make the most of it. The biggest difficulties for my first year here was the language, which if you're in a major city, it's not that big of an issue. Second is the cultural differences, because it's a very tough society over here. The other thing, because growing up in America, I'm used to certain foods and I'm a very picky eater. It was difficult to get used to the different style of tastes that we have over here. But in general, I think it's just incredible. Just do it. Why not?
So I have a question for you. Or a couple questions.
Okay.
First question is, before you had your conversion, did you feel you were treated or looked at differently in your unit because you were not Jewish?
Not at all. No, I never felt that in my unit at all. The only person that actually ever had an issue with it is the one that brought it up to me. She happened to be my best friend. And she said it in a very rude way, and it kind of broke our relationship because first off, I didn't know the true rules about being Jewish of halakha. So it was new to me. I always thought I was Jewish my whole life.
Okay, the second question is, did you feel that you had to make apologies to your Israeli Arab friends?
No,
about
not at all.
Politics or anything?
No, my Israeli Arab friends, my non-Israeli citizen Arab friends that live here, I've never felt like I needed to make an apology for anything because they're all very pro-Israel and they're very supportive of what things I have done, and it's made their lives better.
Well, you're speaking of Israeli Arabs. Don't some of your friends have views that they're not necessarily treated the same way as Jewish Israelis?
Yeah, I do have a few friends that are like that. I have a very good Christian Arab friend. He lives in East Jerusalem. He has permanent residency here, but he doesn't have citizenship here. And he's just as frustrated as I am on the situation because he's born and raised here in Jerusalem, yet he doesn't have Israeli citizenship because of all the situations that have happened in the past. If history would rewrite itself and be a little more different, maybe his family would have had citizenship. But because of the way the leaders have worked in the past, he wasn't able to. But he's still happy to, he calls himself an Israeli, even though he doesn't have full citizenship here.
Could you explain that? I'm a little bit confused. I thought the Arabs living in Jerusalem were citizens of Israel.
Some of them are and some of them are not. It's very complicated. A lot of the Arabs that are living in the Shuafat neighborhood, which is a little bit north of the old city, a lot of them are just permanent residents. So they don't have the right to vote, but they're able to get the same health care and they pay the same taxes for the most part that we do. But voting in the full citizenship, the Israeli passport is different.
Would their children be citizens?
I don't believe so, because if that was true, then my friend would have a citizenship here.
If they want to travel outside of Israel, what kind of a passport do they have, if any?
They'll get a travel document through Israel, no problem. A lot of them that I know, they also have foreign citizenship. The particular friend that I'm talking about, he's also a citizen of Germany. So he travels on his German passport everywhere. But he has like a permanent resident passport that he uses through Israel.
We know that politics is a combat sport in Israel. I just wonder if that's a topic of common discussion in your group.
If what is?
Israeli politics is understood to be a combat sport. And I just wondered if that's true for your group of friends.
If a day goes by that we don't talk about politics, it's very strange. Like, it's a everyday conversation. And I have friends on the whole spectrum, from the far left to the far right and everything in between.
Did you get Israeli citizenship? Did you get Israeli citizenship?
Yeah, I got Israeli citizenship September of 2011.
Which is your favorite part of Israel to travel to or to tour?
Excluding Jerusalem, because there's so much to do here, it's the Galilee region. I just love being around the wilderness and less people, more quiet, a little more nature. Majority of the groups that I've worked with in the past have been evangelical Christians and homeschool groups. So I do a little bit of everything. But I definitely prefer the northern regions the best.
We understand that the vast percentage of tourists are not Jewish, of course, coming from all over the world. I would guess maybe 90%. Would that be a good number?
I would assume something like that for sure. It's definitely a high number up there.
So that means your skills have to extend to other languages and the Christian. You get many Muslim tourists?
I've only guided one Muslim group before so far, but then again, I only got my license right before Corona hit. So it's been a very quiet time of guiding since then.
I see we have a question from Karen. She's raised her hand. Karen, if you'd like, yeah, go ahead.
I was wondering if you visited or stayed on any kibbutzes and what your impression was.
I stayed on Kibbutz Ketorah down south next to Eilat for about 2 weeks. It's a kibbutz made by Young Judea. It's a Jewish youth group organization from the US. And it was fantastic. I had a wonderful time. I love the whole kibbutz atmosphere. I've also spent a lot of time near Kibbutz Gadot, which is up north, really close to Tzfat, which they're mostly known for their factory of making plasticware, from tables and chairs to everything in between. And it's not a thing for me to live on a kibbutz, but it's a beautiful place for people to raise a family, especially if you want to work in a type of atmosphere where everyone's equal. Even though a lot of kibbutzim are privatized now and they don't run the same way it used to be, it's still more of a family atmosphere, like a small town living, where you drive around in golf carts instead of cars back and forth.
Thank you, Hannah. Does anyone else have any questions about Hannah's talk?
I'd like to just give a thing, what she was talking about, the youth group. The youth group is active of Hadassah. It's a Jewish organization. We raise money for the United States as well as Israel. We do the Ein Kerem Hospital, Mount Scopus. We have Youth Aliyah, and we do various fundraising for the five different movements that we do. So we raise money here in the United States and also in Israel. So I just thought to let her know that that's what the youth movement was. I'm a life member of Hadassah. So
I can tell.
I know that. I've been a life member since the 70s.
I have a question for Steve Plotkin. When did you say the VFI program is going to get started again?
October 3rd.
Okay,
That's
thank
not
you.
official. That's not official, but I have already banked my money on it. And a particular program, VFI Plus Archaeology, starts Sunday, October 3rd. So I'm guessing that the regular program should be running also.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Steve, it's Arlene. If we were to follow up on Judith's question, if we wanted to come over just to volunteer, could we just do that? Do they have dates that are available, or how does that work right now?
They have not posted dates yet on the SARL website. It still says dates are coming soon.
Right. My impression is that the first date that will be publicly available for either 1, 2, or 3 week program will be October 3rd. But that's just rumor until we hear something. I'm expecting to hear something solid within the next 2 weeks or so.
I do want to say that if no one else has any other questions for Hannah, I want to let her go to bed because it's late in Israel. So does anyone else have any questions for Hannah before we let her go? Yes, Ina?
I want to say something to Hannah.
Okay, great.
Hannah, where are you?
I'm right here.
Okay, Hannah, I'm a new Ala Hadasha, 3 weeks. I want to tell you kol hakavod to all your life story, everything what you are doing, and good luck. And I want to add, as a new Ala Hadasha, I'm taking a lot of buses, and it's always amazing. So I asked what's the staff, how the whole bus participating to help me. Everybody picks up their phone and trying to look at the phone, and then they ask each other, and then they go to the driver, and the whole bus participating to where I'm going, where I have to get out, and which bus I have to change. It's really wonderful, wonderful. You are right, family situations. It doesn't matter if we have speak different languages, just came to the country, it doesn't matter. As long as you have a question, everybody, a lot of people participating and helping. So thank God.
Yes, it's wonderful. I'm happy you're having a wonderful time so far.
We have people wishing you a shlima and may you have a speedy recovery, and just thanking you for the presentation. So on behalf of all of us at VFI, thank you so much for speaking.
Yes, that was great, Hannah.
And if you want, you should feel free to go to sleep. Anyone in Israel, feel free to go to sleep.
Well, if anyone needs to contact me for anything, you can find me anywhere. Just look up cheerstoisrael.com and you can get all my contact information.
Great.
Thanks,
Great.
Hannah.
Thank you so much for being so inspirational and joining us today. Very timely.
Thank you, and have a wonderful night, guys.
Okay.
Thank you for your service.
Yes.
My pleasure.
Okay. Well, we're now in basically in schmooze mode, but I did promise a quick tutorial on how to optimize your flight schedules and costs. Unless anybody has any particular questions in advance, which I'm open to now, I'll go ahead and do that tutorial. Any issues anybody like to raise?
Steve, it's Arlene. I didn't hear what you said because I was sitting on my balcony and couldn't get connected.
Okay.
So
and
what did
Hannah,
you say about flights?
he's going to say it again, Arlene, but I just want, before Hannah goes, someone's asking, Hannah, can you confirm your website in the chat? They might mean email or something. I'm not sure. Can you put your contact info in the chat if you're comfortable with that?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to do it without direct messaging. It's
Just click
cheers
chat.
to Israel, just like what it says on the shirt.
I can't see the shirt.
Cheers as in L'chaim, CHERS, to Israel. The letter TO, Israel.
At
No.
.com.
Oh, just it is a website. So cheers.
It's a website, and you can find all my personal contact there.
Okay, there you go.
Is
Sorry.
that
No,
just
no,
you?
not the number 2, the word TO.
TOO.
No, just T-O.
Oh my God, I give up.
T-O Israel.
It's there. Thanks.
Yes, there you go.
Mark's got it handled.
Very
All
good.
right, wonderful. Have a lovely night, everyone.
Great. Thanks so
Hannah,
much,
thank
Hannah.
you so much.
Good luck.
Thank you. It was
We'll talk
great.
again. Okay, so I'm going to do a share screen. It'll take me a second to get it all straightened out here. And while I do this, I want you to think in terms of, there it is. Okay, did that pop up?
Can't read it.
Can't read it. It's just.
Yeah, we can't read any of that, Steve. It's like messed up, for lack of a better word.
Okay, let me just, that's what I thought. That's why we struggle to do these things. Let me try a second shot. While I do that, you might want to write down this particular web address. It is matrix.itasoftware.com. And matrixitasoftware.com is recently, within the last maybe year or two, purchased by Google, I believe, for several $1 billion. It's a professional website that actually offers professional services to the airline industry. And so when they need to explain to people like us about things, generally the airlines hire them to do that. Is that any better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the site that opens up when you type in matrix.itasoftware.com. And what you have to do is realize this is sort of professional level software, and it has a great deal of optimization potential because you can modify all kinds of things. I'm just going to show you a couple of things. And what we're going to do is just schedule a flight. It'll be round trip. We're going to go from, let's say, Philadelphia, which is PHL, to TLV, which is Tel Aviv. And that's our destination. We could also specify, if we had the option to leave from other places, where it clicks over here, says nearby. I can also type in all of these different airports that are nearby Philadelphia. And that probably the same is true if you're in Chicago or San Francisco. So if another airport is convenient, you can get that as an option when it does the actual costing out. Next thing we want to do is pick a date. Let's say we're going to travel. In my case, I'm going to travel on September 30th. So I click September 30th. No mystery there. Is that the 30th? Yeah. And that's my date of departure. I could also depart a day earlier, a day later, 1 or 2 days earlier or later. So here again, you get a flexibility that you're giving the system, so it applies these other flexible components to make life better for you. I also am going to have to specify a return date. So I'm going to specify a return date of October 16th, which is a Saturday. Okay, so I have specified that. It's going to be just one person. We'll just price it for one. We could also introduce the concept of youth and seniors, but I'll just leave it simple there. I want the cheapest available. I want, now in stops, they say no limit. I don't like that. I just want to do one stop only. So I'm saying up to one stop to get there. And then you have some potential here to set up additional stops if you want to stay over like for a day or two at a particular city. But I think this will do for what we want to do. So what we've got is a departure date. I'm departing on a certain day. Oh, on our return flight, I'm saying on this day only, but I know that the flights that leave Tel Aviv on a Saturday leave either 11 p.m. or 2 o'clock in the morning the next day. So I'm going to say this day plus the next day. In this case, I will catch both that day and the overnight flights that leave 3, 4, or 5 in the morning. Okay, I'm going to go into search. I just hit search. Sit back, wait a minute, and believe me, this thing is really fast considering what it's doing. It's evaluating probably 30 or 40 airlines internationally. The only airlines which I believe might not participate in this system, I think might be Southwest. Other than that, just about every international airline you can imagine is in there. On the top, it now says that the cheapest flight, which will be multiple carriers, is $694. British Airways has something available at that price point. American at that price point. Go through Canada, Lufthansa, El Al, United. Now, this is all very current pricing. It's the very latest stuff that they have made available internally that this matrix sucks into. So what we've done now is it's listed by price. That is that you can see all these particular opportunities have the same price point. They all say multiple airlines, but they all have slightly different. No, in this case, they have the same departure time. They seem to have the same arrival time, but the thing I look for first is duration. So I don't want to take a 35-hour flight. So I go over here and I can take this little adjustment and move it down. And as I move it down, I'm taking out all of those flights that are shown that take 26 hours or 30 hours. I'm going to bring this down to, I'll say 18 hours going to Tel Aviv and coming back, the same deal. I don't want to spend 2 weeks on an airplane, so I'm going to move it down to maybe 21 hours maximum. So I've eliminated all these other flights that don't meet that criteria. So let's just take a look at the first one, this one here. Let's look at some of the details. So the window opens up and you go into as much detail as you can conceive. In this case, it's a flight operated by American Airlines, and it's going to LHB, which is London, Heathrow. On that date, departs 6:40 p.m., arrives the next morning. Here's the airplane. Here's the flight duration. Here's the layover duration, 1 hour and 10 minutes. And then the second flight, after 1 hour and 10 minutes wait, is British Air, leaving 8 o'clock in the morning, arrive Tel Aviv 2:50, blah, blah, blah. And these are economy fares. We also have some food service. So that is the flight that would be going over. Coming back is Tel Aviv to Philadelphia. So let's see. It departs, in this case, on Saturday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning. Well, that doesn't work for me because I know that the tour group I'm with is going to tour all day Saturday, and it has to depart after about 9 p.m. at night. So this particular arrangement, because it's departing at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'd lose a whole day of touring. I don't want to do that. So let's not use this particular one. Let's look at some other ones. Let's see if we can find a departure. They're all 7 o'clock in the morning. So let's go down the list. And by the way, there could be 250 flight combinations listed here. And you'll see the prices are starting to go up a little bit. So let's just take a snapshot of, let's say, an Air Canada. And I had details. So Air Canada flies Philadelphia to YYZ, which is Toronto, and then Toronto direct to Tel Aviv. That's not too bad. The flight times are not exorbitant. Nice aircrafts. 787, I think, is a Dreamliner. That's really nice if you can get on one of those. Coming home, Toronto, let's see, it departs 12:50 a.m. So if it departs on Saturday at 12:50 a.m., what time is that? That's Saturday morning, basically. That doesn't work. I need Saturday night. So this one doesn't work either. Now, at this point, having shown you two of those examples, I want to go back up and show you some of the flexibilities that you can apply to make life more detailed and more precise to what your interests are.
If the times they're giving are not like Israel times, since it's saying it leaves Tel Aviv.
No, they're all local times at that city.
Okay, so that it said Tel Aviv 12:50 a.m., so it would be 12:50 a.m.
Right, 12:50 in the morning.
It seemed like you were trying to just switch time zones.
Right. The times shown are all the local times at that airport
Great.
So you don't have to convert anything. It's
Right.
done for you.
That's what I thought. Okay.
So let's say I want to just look at a couple of things. I want to look at the stops. Well, I've restricted it to one stop, but let's say that I want to increase the number of stops. I can do that somehow. Just not letting me increase the number, but generally you can maybe because all the ones I have up here are only one stop, but you can set it up to give you 2-3 stops if you want.
Steve, you can click on that blue button, just rejecting one stop.
You think that'll do it? It'll pop up the other ones?
Yeah.
No, it didn't. It's just, I can tell you that normally it allows you to do multiple stops, except this display might not encourage that for some reason. Okay. Let's say that you have a particular arrival time that you need to meet. So we can go into here and we can say, okay, well, here's the prices for all these different assorted arrival times going and coming home. And I
Wouldn't
know.
it be better off going from Newark instead of Philly?
Well, that's another thing. I'll get to that. I'm not necessarily better off. It depends on what I find. That's why you do this research. You could spend an hour easily optimizing your flights here. But let's say that my preferred arrival times, because people are going to meet me, I don't want them to meet me at 2 o'clock in the morning. I don't even want to meet me at 11. I want to make it so the flight arrives between, let's say, midday, 11 o'clock and 5 o'clock. So I've eliminated all those flights that are going to Israel that don't meet my criteria. And you can see it has an impact on the cost you might want to be able to pay. The same thing is true from flying from Tel Aviv. You want to arrive, let's say, not in the early morning, not in the morning. You want to arrive anytime after 11 o'clock. So now we see only the flights that meet that criteria. So you can see that you can start really fine-tuning your criteria. We looked at the duration and we fine-tuned, we took out hundreds of flights that would be beyond our duration allowance. Now, let's say we had a preference on airlines, and for some reason we have to hate one airline or another. Let's say I don't know why, but I don't like Iberia, which is the Spanish national airline. And maybe the German national airline, well, I can do without that, but I want to stick with some of these other ones. So I've just knocked off opportunities to use some of those other airlines. You can even narrow it down to just one airline if you wish. So you get a sense now of all these different customizing possibilities. And now once you get down to customizing it to your, or gaming it actually, you can take a look at what's available to you and make a decision. Whoops, stand by a second.
Steve, you've got a new job. You can work for Matrix.
Or me when I need to find a ticket.
So when I was able to buy my ticket yesterday, it turns out that the cheapest flight that met my criteria was $860. And I immediately went to buy my ticket, but you can't buy your ticket here. This is just an investigation, examination, optimizing information site. They do not sell you anything. Not only that, they don't advertise anything, and it's free to get onto. So it's a great resource. So what you have to do is, let's say the first one is the one I decided on. So what I would do is just print this page out and print this list of details. And in this list of details, it gives me the first flight is American 6911, operated by British Airways. And then the second flight, and the third flight, and the fourth flight. So what I did is I picked up the phone and I called American Airlines and I said, hey, I've got this listing from Matrix, and it seems like the people at the other end are very familiar with this program. I got this information off Matrix. I had gone to the American Airlines site to see if I could directly list it myself. I couldn't find this combination at this price. In fact, this combination, they would have priced it out at something like $2,500. So I couldn't imagine how come this is being shown to me, and yet I can't find it on the American Airlines, AA.com. So I called American and I outlined this flight number, that time, that date. And the lady at the other end said, bing, 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 it's done. And the price, guess what? It is that price. So, and they didn't charge me any extra for ticketing through them directly. Sometimes they do. So that's all you have to do. Now I got my tickets, I got my all my locator codes and all that stuff, and I'm set to go. So I just hope that this little episode has given you some ideas on how to optimize your own flight experiences. Probably most of us have not flown anywhere in the last 2 years. We probably forgot where the airport is, but they haven't forgotten about us. The prices for flights, it seems to me, are higher than they were last time I looked at airplane flights. So,
Steve, this is Jay.
Go ahead,
Steve.
Hey, Jay.
Do you know why American Airlines or any airline would bypass their specialized fee that they charge extra for booking through a telephone call because you gave them the matrix information? Because I've had experiences where they tell you, no, we got to charge you this fee, even though it's customized.
The lady did not add a single dime last night. Now, that may be a COVID-related thing. But you're right, Jay. Normally they would tack on a $35 charge or something, but even that would be a bargain.
Excuse me, Steve.
I think you're right, Steve. I think it's a COVID thing because I just made reservations a while ago for my granddaughter coming here at the end of this month.
Right.
And I did it over the phone and they didn't charge me anything extra either.
And the interesting thing.
And by the way, the flight price was the exact same as it would have been a year ago last May.
Yeah, this price, by the way, is for a coach ticket, and I'm told that it's refundable right up to day of flying. Not necessarily refundable in cash. You'll get it refundable as a credit towards other flights, but it's a no-risk arrangement because you're not going to take
American Airlines does that, and a lot of other ones too. And American Airlines happens to be a great airplane to travel. I've used them a number of times, and so is my family.
Sure.
And I just wanted to let you know that. And the reason why certain days they do not charge you to have tickets over the telephone. And certain days are also less money traveling, like Tuesday and Wednesday.
Right. I'm glad you raised that. I'm gonna go up here to where it says modify search. I'm gonna take us back to the beginning. I want to show you something. If you go in here and instead of searching for an exact date, you search for a calendar of lowest fares by clicking that. And all you have to do is specify a departure date. And let's say it's the same departure date. Let's make it September 30th. Now look what happens. I go here to search. Oh, I do have to specify a length of stay. Let's say 14 days. One person. So I go back in, search. And now it twists the search. The search engine now is optimizing by calendar date the price you might be paying for a flight, just like that lady was just saying. So the price for the round trip flight is $685 on Thursday. And in this case, it's pretty constant. Look at that. Look at that. It's pretty, except here it's $722, $752. So I've seen much greater swings in prices, like they can double on the weekend. But it gives you another way to optimize your flight by maybe picking a departure date or a return date that shows the lowest pricing. So that's another feature of this of the system.
Thank you, Steve, for sharing this system. I have used a different one, but it works just the same. It's ASAP. ASAP tickets, ASAP tickets.com. It's a San Francisco-based firm. And years ago, I went into the office and they arranged a round the world ticket for me. And then later on, I went in and they did a Pacific Circle ticket for me. So they're really a wonderful, wonderful firm that will help. You make a trip, or you can go online and do the same thing that you've been doing here with Matrix. Do everything yourself and set up your tickets. I use them all the time for comparing prices and everything else.
Great.
Before I buy my ticket.
Yeah, there's a fair chance, Gail, that if it looks like this setup, they might in fact be reselling or reusing the Matrix software themselves. Because if you look at the customer list that Matrix has, which I didn't get to here, it's just about every major airline out there and most agencies. They just sort of have a nice corner. That's why Google bought them for several $billion. So I'm trying to think if there's any other features that we could look at. I'm going to take the nights, and instead of 14, I'm going to make them 45, and then do
See,
an update.
there's a couple of questions in the chat when you have a chance.
Why don't you read them to me?
Do you know if there's still a huge airport tax added on to flights that go through Heathrow?
Well, that's a good question. You can actually get a list of the taxes, and believe me, there are about 12 of them listed. And yeah, I'm not sure if it's, I know there is a Heathrow charge, but I'm not sure it's excessive compared to any other major airport. But the list of...
Steve, we have experience with that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Airport charge usually hits you if you use frequent flyer. Your fares include all these costs. But if you buy frequent flyer through London, as opposed to through Madrid or some other place, you're going to find about $200 or $300 tacked on because of the Heathrow tax.
I never fly British. They charge unreasonable taxes.
It's usually not included in the price, the fare that's quoted on websites, but I guess you have to go through the process to find out. And the other question is this website good for domestic itineraries as well?
Yes, it is. By the way, I've never seen an added tax on any flight I've taken, and I've been through Heathrow a lot. So the prices quoted here are final prices, including everything that, everything you need for the only thing that's not included is the potential for baggage handling. Of course, that never is included.
That's great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's also good for domestic flights, except that I don't believe it contains Southwest. And it's really unfair to not include Southwest, but I think they have precluded themselves from competitive comparisons, just their strategy of doing business.
Right.
I want you, everybody who is on the West Coast, rather than going all the way to New York and then going over to Europe, I do the over the pole, and that's through Canadian over Canada, and end up by going to Scandinavian countries rather than London. It's the same, really about the same amount of time.
Any other questions? I'm sure that you get in here and just feel free to start playing with it. Plan to spend an hour, and I almost can guarantee you, based on personal experience, you're going to save your money at least $100 an hour invested on any flights you're looking at. So, all right, I'm going to
Steve, it's Jay again. I think I know why you didn't find the flights with the 3 or 4 flights on them is because you reduced the time frame allowed. And once you did that, you're not going to be able to meet the lower time frame with 3 flights.
That's possible. Then you just expand the time. You're right. All these variables are to be played with, and I just encourage you to get in there and just do your thing.